The Egyptian Book of the Dead. It's called, when you say that name, when you say the Egyptian Book of the Dead in the Medu Neter, which is the name of the hieroglyphics writing system in Kemet, Egypt, it was called Metu Neter. That book wasn't called the Book of the Dead. It's called the Coming Forth by Day, coming forth by the light of the sun, coming forth by day. The Egyptians had 42 laws. Of those 42 laws, 10 of those laws, Moses used those 42 laws that existed before Moses was born. He didn't make not one new law. He wrote down those 10 laws from the laws of the Egyptians. The Egyptians had the Book of the Dead, which is really the coming forth by day, coming forth by day. And in Revelations, Jesus Christ said, I am the bright and morning star. It said the Son of Righteousness shall come from heaven, and righteousness shall spring up out of the earth and go forth to meet. Just like when lightning strikes down, the pulse comes up from the earth and goes to meet the lightning bolt. Well, when the sun comes down, it said when righteousness comes down, it said righteousness shall come up from the earth in symbolism to say you're going to meet, because it's all about when you know how the sun operate, you know how life operates. When you know how the sun moves, you see why there's all the symbolism in the Bible about Jesus Christ, S-U-N, not S. Blitz, sit down. Blitz, go lay down. Come on, dog. Blitz, lay down. Lay down. Lay down. Yeah, man. Let's stop playing games. If you unify every religion and stop the bull crap, you can see the truth through all things. That's why it's the same story in every text, in every culture that ever existed on this planet, even before Adam was born. According to Christian tradition, Adam cannot be possibly born before 4004 BC. If I take this literal lineage in Genesis, if you trace the lineage in Genesis and you go Abraham, Methuselah, Isaac, blah, and such began, blah, blah, he lived 1,000 years and he died, he lived 900 years, whatever, he died. If you trace it out to its farthest possible extent, the farthest possible we can go back is 4004 BC. But 10,000 BC, we have Horus or Heru with the statue on Isis' breast, the Virgin and the Mother. 10,000 years BC, we got Horus with the mother, the little child sucking the titty of Isis, the Virgin and the child, and the child talking about I'm the way, the truth, and the life. Little Horus talking about I'm the way, the truth, and the life. Horus with 12 disciples on a boat, 10,000 years before biblical Adam could possibly exist. Like 6,000, back in 10,000 BC. Why do you think Mel Gibson wrote 10,000 BC? We've been here since 10,000 BC. We've been here since we can't even name. That's how long. All right. The Bible is a code, that astrological code that's recording hundreds of thousands of years of human history in sentences. It's taking whole hundreds of years of human civilization and putting it into poetic form and scrunching into bite-sized chunks in one scripture. Like you think the statue of Daniel. We think the statue of Daniel, and like in Genesis when it says, like going from that golden age to the silver age to the bronze age, the iron age, that's talking about a huge expansive extents of human history. Golden age, consciousness, silver age, you start to get a little more, go down in our conscious. Bronze age. It's funny when the bronze age come out, iron age come out later on, like that's when the wars go on. And then in Genesis it says Tubal Cain and them, and men began to call in the name of the Lord. And then men began to call in the name of the Lord. And then it said men began to work with metal, like Tubal Cain. We think we talk about one man and his son, and then another man and his son, and another man and his son. But you really talking about like thousands of years of generations, symbolically allegorized as, and then men began to call in the name of the Lord. Or men started working with metal. Like it's showing how we shifted our consciousness, moving out of the forest, started making civilization coming together. And these stories, first of all, before Abraham was born, there was already a constellation in the sky called Virgo, or the Virgin. She came up during September, the 7th month of the year. She came up during September, the 7th month of the year. She had wheat in her hand. She was the Virgo. All the zodiac signs represent stuff in nature and life principles. So something's not adding up if I'm just going about life and looking at it in the Christian perspective way. When you come back to nature, all things are God, which is just knowing what all things are, knowing what I am is. But then the glorified are the spirits, your ancestors, that pass on and become part of it and watch over you. The Bible call them angels. Africans call them ancestors. Africans call them ancestors. And that's the glorified. The Africans called the ancestors that lived through this life, called them the glorified. Once their consciousness raised and they passed on and they eventually elevated and evolved out of this life into the higher celestial realms. You say, oh, my grandmother watching over me. Though they were called the glorified. They become one with nature. Like you seen that movie Lucy. Okay? For us that's still in this dimension, to us, they're the glorified. But that scripture, glorified means to exalt above matter, above the matrix, like Neo did in the Matrix. That's what glorified means. Glorified means to be able to conquer the matrix like Neo did by learning through Morpheus and learning to master his senses and realize that this is all some bullshit. This is just an illusion. This only kindergarten. This only level 1. This is the first round. This is just the first world. This is the first world. All right? You're supposed to master this. Okay? The ancestors glorified the matrix, got glorified. That's the same thing that happens in August when the sun is at its highest peak, when it's in its glory. The sun is in all its glory. And I can't get into the science of astronomy right now and astrology, how that relates to your soul. Astrology is really the astrology of the soul, your mind. Because when you understand the energy points of these forces of nature that's in you, when they come in, you can say what you want. I don't care if you're a Christian. You can say what you want. I don't care if you're a Christian. When you look at your zodiac sign and you add that thing up, if it's on point, how come God don't talk about that? If it's on point, what is that? Don't be scared of it. What is it? Okay? But through that whole science of astrology, understanding self, you're supposed to become like the sun in his glory time. That's why the sun is always praised. And that's why the dead time of winter is shunned. Because winter is the time of death. When you look through the astrology, winter is the time of death when the sun is at its lowest energy point. It's death in the earth. The trees is dead during winter. It's at its lowest energy point. That's why it's a symbol of death. But in the astrology cycle, but in the summertime is at its highest point, and the energy is the greatest, and the life is the greatest at that point. Death from life. Life resurrects at March 21st in spring when it come out the little shoot. It's saying Isaiah 11, it said the shoot, the branch. In Hebrew, the nature, literally. In nature, go on Blue Letter Bible, look up nature, and look inside that Hebrew word for nature when it said the shoot, the branch shall come forth. The literal Hebrew pronounced word is the nature. The nature. That's where we get our word nature from. And it means the little tiny little green shoot that comes back after death. And it said the branch of righteousness shall come forth. And we celebrate Easter on December 21st when the little shoot come back out the branch, come out the tree. When the sun is coming back up into its power, during summertime, when the sun is in all its glory. The sun is in all its glory. It brings life back from the dead. It resurrects life from the dead. Jesus tell you parables about nature, and that's to be glorified, to be perfect, to be one with God, to understand all things, to be in earth as it is in heaven. In earth, EARTH is the same thing as HEART, hearth, because home is where the heart is. Christ said the kingdom is in you, in earth as it is in heaven. And it does that in you. And I'm wrapping it up with, if glorified in the Egyptian culture, in the Kemetic dark-skinned black